And there are two types of time, kāla and akāla. Kāla means what? It comes from kāla. Kāla shabda and vriddhi and kāla is kāla. What is kāla? Parts. If the time is made out of parts, we all know time only through parts, whether it is a minute or hour or day, only through this we know. But before that, before sun, it was akāla. There was no division. And you see that this concept is taken up over all of this, and it also says, yo kalam brahme vipasita kālaha tasya duram avasarati. That is the Upanishad and the Purāṇic. I am not telling anything new. They want kāla to be worshipped as Brahma. Kāla is the final thing. We also say, yes sir, in Ujjaini, no kāla, and the Prime Minister came there to inaugurate about time measurement. Fine. But why don't you relate it to the history? No, the Purāṇas and even the Dharma Shastra, Manu, they are all aware of this. Very well aware of this. So their time concept has to start from sun, because it is the Ahargana which was the earliest counting. Day counting we all do. The sunrise, I can do. Even today we will say, if you see the Panchanga people, sunrise to sunrise has to be taken as 30 Muhurta, 60 modern Ghatika, they would say. Or 24 hours in the modern way. This is from the Vedas, nothing new. The friendship and all these things are even in the Vedas. Not going into those details. So from sunrise to sunrise was the counting. And they thought about when sun might have been created and all that. Now, why did they do this? And why did the concept of Praya and those things come up, the yugas come up? Obviously, it is because of the Sarasvati river drying up. Now, Sarasvati river dried up, we know, around 2000 BC or so. And this Skanda Purāṇa, the Prabhāsa Kanda, is all about 1000 shlokas only on the drying up of river Sarasvati, but in a very, very picturesque way, that it burned and there were some things happened. So some Rakshasas came, they wanted to, so many things are there. I have written on that, but it is all about disaster. And he also says the kāla agni is what the Vedavadis are telling us, kāla agni, Rudraya, Nilakantaya, Mahadevaya. It is all burning there in the Prabhāsa Kshetra. Prabhāsa is not modern Somanatha. This Prabhāsa is somewhere near Ran of Kutch, Irina region, where there is a volcanic thing, a Nakatrana, which is like a volcano. Even today you can go and see that. Modern people also agree these are all in ancient period volcanoes and all that. There is no question of that. But how did these people know? They would have questioned. They might not as modern astronomers gone there with their seismographs and made measurements, but they thought about it. Vedas don't say when it happened. Vedas give some clues. Historically, 1800 BC was the Magadhi period and all that, even in the Aranya. But it's the Purāṇic people and the Manu, my feeling is this text belongs something like a pre-Purāṇic period. If the Purāṇas all started somewhere from in the Gupta period, as the usual thing to say, this would be prior to that. Reason is it belongs to a class of texts, this text, which doesn't know Rashi, which doesn't know weekdays. If the weekdays and Rashis are not known, that's the Mesha Vrishabha difference. It belongs to the period of Kautilya's Arthashastra, Bharata's Natya Shastra, and the Narada Shilpa Shastra, which I have edited, because they don't know these things. Some of them they don't know even about Tithi. They are only about Nakshatra and Karana. Narada Shilpa only knows about Nakshatra and Karana. So they all go to that previous period, which is the Dharma Sutra period, or the Grihya Sutra period, about 500 BC or maybe more than that, prior to that. This talks about Sanatana, this talks about that, the Vyutpatti also, like Tamo Bhautam Aprajnatam. The same is what comes in the Rigveda, and same as in the Vridigargya Jyotiṣa Mahasalanam, which I recently edited. It talks about a big split. Even the Purāṇas talk about it. but they all combine and they give extra stories. And this is an interesting thing because the stories, if you make it mathematical and give us equations, they will be forgotten and they put in the waste paper basket. But if you retain it as a story, that story may be what you may call asat. And the Vedantis will talk of sadasat, vastu, viveka and all kinds of big things. All the sat is always covered with an asat. Like my plantain is covered with chilka outside, It's up to you what do you want to eat. That is a different matter. So you can take this sat. The stories, the akhyanas, even in the Brahmana text, like the Soma legend and all of that, Soma Rohini legend, Soma loving only, staying with only Rohini. Gurudevji Jyotiṣa gives an astronomical explanation for all of that. I will not go into those things. And that is an important thing in historically taking, that it is in Indian history, the concept, the ideology, or our people thought of history, our past, from the birth of sun. And that is the differentiation between Paravidya and Aparavidya. Now, Paravidya may be the Upanishad and all of those things which are accessible to beyond the Indriyas. Whereas the Aparavidya, as we know, it is the intellectual thing. So we are interested only in the intellectual thing. So when you come to the intellectual thing, you need time measurement. And that is from sun. So Surya Yonihi Kalasya is the correct thing, and from there only all life started. Now, is it discussed in detail? You may say, this is all prehistory, moderns would say. You are going to Cenozoic period, you are going to Protozoic period. We have that also. There are concepts in the Purāṇa. It is not 1,000 years before the sun happened. It is not in 4000 BC the creation happened. It was 2.3 billion years ago. 2.3 billion years ago, sun was created in the Swayambhuva Manvantara. And in the Chakshusha Manvantara, part of sun fell in the Irina region, that is the Ran of Kutch region, in the Prabhāsa. That is what the Purāṇas said. How did they know that time? I don't know. They might have imagined or they might have got. There are some other clues given to that in the Purāṇas. It will take me into too much of time about precision of the earth, the Dhruva moving, and the legend with Dhruva. I will not do that. And in between, you may ask what happened to them 2.3 billion years up to the Sarasvati river drying about 2000 BC. That's all inculcated in our Dharma. We worship Saligrama. Saligrama is Vishnu. We don't need any special pratishtha for that. Saligrama is Amonite. What does science say? It is about 200 million years ago the Ammonites formed. Fine. So you can say Vishnu Avatara also in a life form happened 250 million years ago. They knew that. So that is how they have tried to link the Anadi kāla or the Sanatanatva. Now, Saligrama is, you may say, no sir, this is only in the Garuda Purāṇa, it is not in the Veda, I agree. But there is a similarity. Because all of our culture is based on a self-similarity. It's a samya. Because Swayambhuva, he occurred on his own and he created Bhrigu and all others in a self-similar way. Veda itself says it is the self-similar way. It is like similar triangles and all that. Now, self-similarity is a very important principle today, as we know, a chaos and those things, the structures. But they had known this by direct perception, perhaps, and that is how they created. Now, Vedas, where do you get any information between the Sarasvati river and that? It is again in the Aranyaka. You know that in all the yagas, they have to keep below some 5 sambharas. The details I will not go into. In fact, even some people say a human head has to be kept and all that, maybe some other things. But one of the important things is Valmika Vapa. Valmika Vapa has to be kept in the Somayaga, Agni Chayana, Agnyadana, Agnishtoma. Whenever you have the Vedic Agni, you have to keep that. Why? The mantra is there. Devihi Vamri Rasya Bhutasya Pratamaja Ritavarihi. Taittiriya Aranyaka mantra. This Vamri is the oldest on this earth. Pradhamaja Pratavarihi. Asya Bhutisa Pradhamaja Ratavar. Now, modern scientists will say, no, sir, no. It is you are telling about termites. They are okay, older than cockroach, we know that, but it may go up to about 600 million years. Fine.
Right.
When sun is 2.3 billion years ago, now this should not matter for me. But the issue, the point that you have to see is our history, epistemologically you want to establish, go back to sun. It is the sun which is the important thing, and that is why Surya is mentioned, and I will not go into the other issues. And you would see our villages. Many of, I'm sure you would have seen in Bangalore, I'm happy with it, even though this is a very cosmopolitan, modern town. There are villages, because all these were villages, they will be standing in a corner, looking at sun and doing like this. I'm sure you would have seen this. Many people do, even in our houses and all that. It is the sun worship, Surya Upasana, because the Vedas say everything started with